Hello, and welcome to our class on making phone calls. One of the first things that we want to do when we're making phone calls is take a script and follow that script very closely. That's included in an attachment with the email that went out last week. And you'll actually get more of that script in a week or two. But what we're going to discuss is just the first 3 steps. What this does is it really brings down what I call people's sales walls. When we call someone or we've been called by somebody, we say and we hear, "Hi, this is Susie Frankham with AT&T, and I'm calling because," they go on and on and on and on. We instantly feel this wall come up going, "I don't want to talk to them. How fast can I get them off the phone? How quickly can I say no? What do I need to do to get this over?" And that's what we want to avoid having happen with our customers. We want them to feel engaged. We want them to feel how much we care about them. We want them to know that we are calling them because we care about them and their needs. And there's a way to do that, and that's what I'm going to teach you this morning. All we want to do is make sure that you're feeling authentic, that we're listening well to people, that they feel like they're being given an opportunity to speak, that we're engaging in a conversation versus us just talking to them and hoping they'll say yes. It's a really nice system. And when you follow these first 3 steps, which you'll see none of these first 3 steps have anything to do with your product. In fact, that we want to avoid mentioning the name of your company. When we do this, this alone will increase your closers, will increase the percentage of how many, if you sat down one day and you picked up the phone and you dialed the phone and you made a bunch of phone calls, this will increase how many people you either book a class with, you sell with, you sign up as someone who's now going to sell with you. All those numbers will go up just by doing these first 3 steps. And it's one of those things like any sales tip that you practice until you've done it yourself. You may think, how can that really make that big a deal? How much of an impact can that really make? But I'd like you to really give it a try and see what happens, because it does make a huge difference. So the first thing we're going to do, the first sentence that we're going to say is we're going to state our name. And if we do know them, we just state our first name. If it's someone that we think we may have met, and they may not remember our name or remember the situation we met them in, or it's a referral, we want to say our whole name. And we're going to put this magic word on the end. We're going to say, "Hi, this is Michelle Withers calling," and pause. And what this does, when we say calling versus if I just say, "Hi, this is Michelle Withers," you're kind of waiting for our next thing to say. If I say, "Hi, this is Michelle Withers calling," we put that on the end, and it's a down tone versus an up tone. "Hi, this is Michelle Withers. Michelle Withers calling." They feel that we're allowing them to then talk. And they'll start racking their brain. "Michelle Withers, Michelle Withers, how do I know Michelle Withers?" Or maybe they do know me. "Oh, hey, Michelle, how's it going?" Either way, we want to pause until they say something. We're hoping that most of the time they'll go, "Okay, yes." They'll give some sort of feedback like that. Every now and then you'll have a very long, pregnant pause. And one of the things I do is just say, "Hey, it's okay, you don't actually know me." And they'll go, "Okay," and I'll say, then we'll go to the next step. But let me finish here. The calling is a magic word. You want to stop. Let them talk. The whole goal here is we're going to get 3 responses, hopefully positive responses, something along the lines of yes. And the other thing is, because it's conversational, because we've spoke, then let them speak, then we speak, then we let them speak again, then we speak, and we let them speak again. Before we get to any sales pitch, the sales walls come down. It's really an effective tool. So put it to good use. So the second thing we want to say is another phrase that we can guarantee will be a yes. It's something that we're reminding them of. Now, unless you're calling your mom or your sister or your very best friend, I want you to try to use this step as much as possible. I want you to get in the habit of everyone you call, hi, this is Michelle Withers calling, but obviously using your name. Put your name in there, and every single person you call, including your mom, say, hey, Mom, this is Michelle calling. I want you using that first step over and over and over until it just rolls off your tongue without thinking. And it will take practice at first. It will feel awkward at first, but it pays off. There's hardly anything that we want to learn or get better at that doesn't feel awkward at first, but it will be worth it. So the next one, if you're looking at your script there, you have two different phrases you can choose from. If you recall, or I understand. If you recall, we met at Target on Tuesday. If you recall, we met at Becky's on Thursday at her oils party, her oils class. If you recall, we got talking at the doctor's office about ear infections. If you recall, wherever it was you met them, if you recall, something where hopefully it's something you jog your memory, and hopefully you're calling them within that 24 to 48 hour window that's most effective after you've met someone. But when you call them, remind them where you've met. But we're still going to leave off the name of the company. You might say what you represent. You know, we talked about oils, or at Susie's class on oils, we're still going to leave the name of the company off because that keeps the sales walls down. And the other statement you can say is, I understand. This is a great one when you've had a referral. So you've been working with Becky. She has no interest in selling the oils, but her friend Wendy, she's been talking to her about them, and she's thinking about giving them a try. So we'd say, hi, Wendy, this is Michelle Withers calling. Pause. I understand you're a friend of Susie's. And that's all we're going to say. It's like an instant referral when we mention a name of somebody they know. I understand you're a friend of so-and-so's. I understand you're acquaintance of so-and-so. I understand you work with so-and-so. I understand. Sometimes I'll even do, like, if I'm calling someone who's in sales, I understand that you're in sales and you're a friend of so-and-so's. As many places as I can make a connection with them and show I'm interested in them, I will state those things. So I understand, and it's something that you should be pretty certain, 99.9% certain that that's a true statement. So they'll say yes. You want get them nodding their head yes. So then the next one is, hey, do you have a quick minute? This is an amazing little special question to ask because people feel so much more respected when we ask them if this is a good time. I don't know how many times I have salespeople call me and they just start talking and they have no idea. The thing is, until we start using FaceTime or some sort of phone system where we can always see what's going around somebody when we call, we do not know what's going on in their life. And I do joke that God made voicemail for a reason and don't pick up my phone if I'm in a big conversation with a child or my husband or I'm busy doing something. But some people still pick up the phone no matter when it rings. And sometimes they really are busy even though they picked up the phone. So don't make assumption that just because they picked up the phone means they have time to talk. You want to ask them, do you have a quick minute? Some people will use phrases like, is this a good time? Did I catch you at a bad time? We don't want to make it negative, or we don't want to make it sound like we're assuming it was a bad time. We want it as positive as we can, and we want to make it sound like we're respecting their time as much as we can. And so the one that has seemed to be the most effective is, do you have a quick minute? We want to show that we're going to be respectful. And I'll have just one or two questions. Now, if we keep chatting and they're okay with it, yes, I'll talk to them quite often more than a quick minute. But it's usually because they're interested in what I'm talking about, or because I'm asking good questions and they like, not in an arrogant way, but people like to talk about themselves because I've shown interest in them. They're willing to talk longer on the phone too. But we just want to say, do you have a quick minute? 90% of the time, maybe 80% of the time, there's a yes on this one. Now and then there will be somebody who would, actually, no, I'm on my way out the door. Actually, no, I'm driving in my car. Actually, no, I'm trying to help a child with something. I'm cooking dinner, whatever it might be. What we want to say is, technically, you got to know, no, this isn't a good time. The first thing you always want to say whenever you get a no, it doesn't matter if it's no to the oils, no to an appointment, no to signing up as a recruit, it doesn't matter what it is. Whenever you get a no, this is a really nice little magic tool that I'm giving you. It's just 2 words. It's I understand. One of the things that we're taught as salespeople a lot of times is to quote unquote overcome objections, which usually means we have to say something like, yeah, but here's what you can do. And nobody likes that. If somebody said no, there is a chance that that no means no. Sometimes it actually means I need more information. I'm worried that it's not going to work out. I'm scared I don't have the skills or the confidence. I would, but I can't afford it. Or I would, later, but not today. There's a lot of different things that a no can mean. And so if we start yeah butting instead of stopping, saying I understand, and find out a little more information, we can't be as helpful. And it annoys people, and we don't like when it's done to us. So whenever someone tells you no, why don't you get in the habit of just stopping, taking a breath, saying, hey, I understand. Because we are empathetic people, we do understand. Now that doesn't mean we're going to completely drop it. That's not what I'm saying. But this is the best way to keep the sales walls down, is by simply saying, I understand. So when you've called someone, and in this situation, this one's pretty simple versus we're trying to close a deal on a sale. Hey, do you have a quick minute? No, actually, I'm just headed out the door. Hey, I completely understand. I would love to catch up with you. Is this time of day normally good? And today just isn't a good day, or is this day always a time you're headed out the door? And then they answer you. What we want to do is give an optional close. Oh, right. Well, I had some time. I was going to make some phone calls in the next 2 days, either this evening or tomorrow morning. Is there any chance either of those would work better for me to call back? Make an agreement. If it's evenings or mornings, Tuesday or Thursdays, you always want to give options. Let me tell you why. I want you to think for a minute when somebody says, when would be a good time to do X? When would be a good time to get together for coffee? When would be a good time for Georgie and, Sam to get together and play? When would be a good time for XYZ, whatever it is? Do you ever just stop and think, oh, I am so busy. I don't know when I'm going to fit that in. Okay, and you may stop and you think, okay, I have this big event on Tuesday, and this big event on Wednesday, and this big event on Thursday. And it doesn't necessarily take up the whole, 18 hours of waking time, but at the same time it takes up a big chunk of your day. We are all busy people. It's just the way our society is. Very few of us are sitting around, just playing all day. We're all really busy. So what we want to do is help the person that we want to have an appointment with, especially when you know that they're interested in your product or your service. We want to make it as easy for them to set an appointment. So when we ask, hey, are mornings or evenings better? And they stop and they go, oh, wait, in the mornings, I'm not as busy. Yeah, on Thursday, I do have that big activity where I'm going to have to be preparing stuff in the morning, but I do have some mornings. Okay, great. Well, would Wednesday or Friday work better? For evenings, no, you know what? I get off at 5 and I go home, have dinner, watch one of my favorite shows. No, I do have some time in the evening, okay? People feel busy, and they are busy, but they usually have small chunks of time if we just help to kind of spark their imagination, give them a couple options, have them look at their calendars and help them figure out when. But if it's just that basic question of when would be a good time, they're just going to tell you they're busy all the time, and they're not going to want to think quite that hard to figure it out for you, especially if they're just finding out about your product and they don't yet understand how much they want it. You really have got to do everything you can to make this easy for them. So help them book a time by giving them options when you're available, and keep it a little bit generic when you first start. Like I said, Tuesday or Thursday or morning or evening, and then look at your calendar. Now, one of the things that I encourage you to do is to control your calendar. I'm not saying you just make the appointment whenever is perfect for everybody else. You have your preset options. So if you choose to make phone calls on Tuesdays and evenings and Wednesday mornings, or if you choose to have working hours only in the afternoon when your children aren't home or babies are sleeping or whatever it may be, pick your working time. And based on your working time, those will be some of the options that you'll offer. Now, you might want to have a few times that are flexible, that you're going to say, 3 times this week I'm going to work, and 3 times this week I'm going to make sure I have dinner with my family. And so then you get to decide, okay, I've now booked 3 working nights. The rest of the nights are now family nights, and we'll have to go into the next week to book classes or something along those lines. Control your calendar, choose when you're going to work, and when you give an optional close, make sure those options fit based on the times you've chosen to work. This will make you feel balanced. You won't get as resentful towards your company. You'll enjoy what you're doing. You won't burn out as fast. You'll have consistency. It's nice to get a paycheck every month of a certain amount of money and watch that grow over time. But control your calendar and get those optional closes. Now, let me tell you, there was a study done with the optional closes, and there was this little interview that goes on. It was for senior housing. They said all these same questions, learned about them as individuals. Both these salespeople did that at the end of their calls. One person said, "So do you want to come see the housing?" And the other person said, "Do you want to come in on Tuesday or Thursday?" The person who said, "Do you want to come see it?" booked under 10. The person who said, "Would you like to come in on Tuesday or Thursday?" booked over 70. That's how important this is. It's really critical to do an optional close. Help your customer out by choosing a date based on your availability and them looking at their calendar versus them just telling you a time. Because you'll also hear excuses like, "Well, let me check with my husband, see whether he's available. Let me get back to you." All those kind of things. And guess what? Unless you're have $1 million offer or something that's just amazing that they just can't say no to, because we're all busy, it may get put in the back of their brain and they may forget to check in with so and so or whatever it may be. If they do say something like that and they say, "Oh, I'll get back to you," we do want to have a little safety net on that. So if, for example, you called someone, say, "Okay, when can I get back to you?" And they say, "Well, I'll call you, I'll give you a call next week." One of the things that I do, and this is the same with if they say, "Hey, I've got to talk to so and so and then get back to you." One of the things I like to do is to create a safety net. Sometimes people say that and they have best of intentions, but because they're human, sometimes they don't call back like they say they will. In fact, I would say probably 78% of the time they don't call back. And that's okay. So what we want to do, because we know that's a good chance that won't happen, they won't call you back, what we want to do is say, "Hey, you know what? I think that's great. I look forward to talking to you. If I haven't heard from you by the end of the week or whatever the time period is that you agreed to, by Saturday, if I haven't heard from you, I'm just going to give you a quick call. If you're anything like me, you get busy and there's only so much that I can fit in my brain. And so I'll give you a call on Saturday if I haven't heard from you. Would that be okay?" And 99% of the people say, "Yeah, that's fine, no problem." Now and then you'll have that person who says, "No, I'll call you when I want to, it's a good time for me." And that's okay. Let them call back, and sometimes they will, and sometimes they won't. And it's okay. It's just a numbers game. you're not going to close every single deal. You're not going to sell to every single person you talk to, and maybe it just wasn't the right time. But there's nothing worse than them saying, hey, I'll give you a call, and then it's a couple days later, you haven't heard from them, and you're going, oh, shoot. They sounded interested. They say they'd call back. They haven't called me. Now what do I do? Basically, all you can do is hope they call you or hope you run into them at the grocery store and that they'll go, oh, I'm so glad you saw me. I've been meaning to call you and haven't had a chance or lost your phone number. Or I can tell you that 90% of the time when somebody said they'd call me back, but they didn't get back to me, or even in this scenario when I've called somebody and they're not picking up, and I have no idea why, but they sounded really interested, I am telling you, it's probably been at least 90, if not higher, percent of the time. I have later found out there was a crisis in their family. Someone died, or a vacation, or, there was some concrete reason. When they had agreed to, let's say, hold a class or buy something, or they really were interested in becoming a new consultant with me, whatever it might have been, and then all of a sudden it's like they're MIA, and you just can't figure out what happened to them. I'm telling you, most of the time, something's happened in their life. So if they're not calling you back, or for some reason you can't get them on the phone when you had an agreed time, just give it some time, okay? Call them back again a week later, 14 days later, and I am telling you, over and over again, I've had the situation of people going, I'm so glad you called. I had this life thing happen. I really did want to have a party with you. I really was interested in the business opportunity. It just wasn't the right time, but now is a much better time. When you choose not to take things personal, not to go down that path of, oh no, what happened? Why aren't they talking to me? It's a horrible feeling, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. When we said choose to just take a deep breath, move on to the next person, go back to them in a couple days, you'll see what happens, and you'll hear what the reason was. Okay, so going back to that, create a safety net. If they say no, this isn't a good time, and if for some reason they say, hey, I'll give you a call back later, always create that net by saying, no problem, I am excited to hear from you. If for some reason I haven't heard from you by Wednesday, I'll give you a call on Thursday if you've got busy and, if you're like me, you've just forgot. Oh, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Okay, that sounds good. So that's how you're going to create this. Now, after they have, when in the situations, which 80% of the time people say, yeah, sure, I have a minute, tell me what's going on. We just want to say the reason I'm calling is, and it may be, we talked about your son and some health issues he was having, or your husband, or, you're talking about that you had just been downsized out of your job, or someone had been laid off. Whatever the reason is that you first connected and got their name and number, kind of state that, and then just say, what I'd love to do is just to get to know you a little bit better. And that's where you're going to start using those questions that you're formulating. A week or two ago, I gave you the assignment to create a list of perks that your business offers, both for the product, and for the business opportunity. All those things are things that you should make a list of benefits. And based on those benefits is where we're going to create questions. Now, this week on the phone calling system, you can say whatever you want after that. I just want you doing those first 3 steps really consistent, really accurately, and going through those and being 100% consistent about it. After that point, after next week, we'll start talking about the specific questions that you're going to ask people. If you want to start adding some of these questions in that you create from the benefits of your company, then do that. But we'll have this whole long script and then how to close the deal. But just practice. I know most of us aren't making nearly as many phone calls as we could, should, etc., to be successful in a business. So just do it with whoever you normally call this week, and then we'll keep working on that and adding the questions. Excuse me, one moment. Alrighty, back to what we're talking about. Now, one of the things that I have found when creating questions is I've actually stepped back, and sometimes we think there's a perfect question that we can ask, and that will reveal all these needs about people. What I've actually found out is that I need to stop and think about, what do I need to learn about this person? What do I need to find out about them? And based on that, what am I going to ask? And sometimes I need 2 or 3 different types of questions for the same type of, what do I need to find out about a person? Because sometimes I ask a question and sometimes people will answer it in a different way than I expect. So then I have to ask a follow-up question, because I still don't have the question I'm looking for, or actually the answer I'm looking for, but and I care about what they said, but I still need to know. So a couple of things, for example, when I was recruiting, a couple of things I needed to know. I needed to know if they loved the product I sold. I needed to know if they had any need for some extra income. And also, it was nice to know if they had any personal, kind of emotional need for some personal self-development. Because there's a lot of personal development that happens when you're in sales. And especially when you're self-employed in sales, not just for somebody else who you get a typical paycheck from, but is completely commission. And when I found out those 3 things, but I had a variety of questions I needed to ask to find out. That's where you want to really think about, what do I need to find out about a person? And that's where you're going to ask questions like, hey, what kind of health concerns do you have in your family? What kind of products do you use or medications, or those kind of things do you use to help with certain ailments? All those kind of things. How would you feel about something that's a little more natural and you didn't have to worry about the side effects? And all those, remember, we talked about open-ended questions. We want to make sure they're open-ended. And when we've gone through those questions, it really helps. So I really want you to think about that. Make sure that you're formulating those kinds of questions. Looking at my notes here. One of the things that you'll find, and we're starting to talk about you reaching out to new people as you're out and about in your daily life. One of the things that I have seen people do is that as soon as we hear about one particular issue where your company or your product could be a help to someone, we kind of jump right on that and start talking about, hey, I have this thing that can help. And one of the things that helps to actually get a deal closed, and when we're in that situation, the deal we're trying to close is just actually a one-on-one, sitting down and showing them your product, or making a phone call, getting their name and number. That's what we're hoping to close in that situation, not necessarily a deal. So when we've only found out about one need, so let's say there was a little boy that was with a mom, and you could see he kind of had a cold, and you ask, oh, poor little thing, how long has he been sick? What all ails him? And those kind of things. And let's say that's all you found out, and you jumped right on that with there's a product that you have. If instead you slowed down and you said, oh, so do you have other kids? Have they, caught this? Are you and your husband, what's your immune system like? Do you catch everything they do, or do you do pretty well? What kind of health concerns do the 2 of you ever have? What's the one that takes you out the worst? All those kind of questions to find out more about their family. And here, those are quick questions. You can get answers from them. When all of a sudden you have multiple needs, that's when it's going to be a lot easier. You know what? What you do is you go into a question. You know what? I've had some friends who had some similar struggles. I like to use a third person versus myself. You can do both. I and actually a couple other friends I know have had some similar challenges. For some reason, it almost becomes like a referral when they heard someone besides just you, this thing worked for them. It just comes off a little differently and doesn't feel salesy. I don't know why. All I know is it works better. And say, I have some things that have worked for them. Now, let me give you an example that we all probably can relate to, that sometimes helps when we hear about a different product. So you can kind of feel how you might come off when you do it either with one need versus three needs. Okay, and so this will give you kind of a extreme example. One of the examples is a car salesman. And we all joke about car salesmen and their reputations and what kind of things, antics and stuff they use to sell. And so one of the things that I have found is if we went into a car salesperson and we said, we need a new car because we need something more reliable. And so let's say that's the only thing they, reliable? Well, I've got reliable. Let me go show you these cars that are reliable. And let's say they're reliable, but they are small. They only have 2 doors versus 4 doors. They only fit 4 people in the vehicle. It's not in your price range. It doesn't have safety issues that you want to cover, all those kind of things. If the only thing that car salesman went off of was, I need something more reliable, and they took you over and started showing you all the cars that they thought were reliable, versus slowed down and they said, great, I would love to help you find something that's more reliable. Tell me about how many people will be riding in your car usually. Are they children or are they adults? What safety features are important to you? So you tell them a couple. Hey, can I tell you about a safety feature that you kind of knew that you may not know about? Sure, okay, great. You tell them about that. Scale of 1 to 10, how interested would you be in that safety feature? Oh, a 9, that sounds like a good idea. Okay, great. Are you going on long distances? Is entertainment, or what kind of things in the car are important to you to have? Oh, it'd be great to have a video, a TV type system in there. Okay, great, good. And so we keep going and we found out these needs, and he shows you the perfect vehicle. Or let's say he asks about your price range, and then he shows you 3 different vehicles and gives you a couple different options. Okay, that, can you feel? I just want you to feel in your heart how that would feel versus he jumps right on that just one thing of, I need something reliable. When you start slowing down and asking several questions, revealing several needs, when you're first meeting people, it'll be the same way when we call them back. Both of these scenarios, when you find multiple needs versus just one, you don't come off as salesy. 2, you are much more likely to get their phone number and to get a sit-down appointment with them. And 3, you just come off more authentic. It feels better for both you and the potential client when you've got to know them more. And it's going to be a habit that you're going to have to create. Because a current habit, if you are taking the time to get to talk to people out there in your community, whether you're Target or doctor's office, or whatever it may be, and you're used to hearing one need and jumping on that need and wanting to share about your product, it will take some practice to slow down, take a deep breath. And a couple other things you want to ask is, are there other people in your family that suffer with this? Are there things that they suffer with instead? What is their immune system like? What's the first thing you catch when the school year, starts back up? What do allergy seasons do to you? You can ask several other questions to see what other needs are out there. Okay, what kind of medications are you taking in your family? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you like to get off those? And these are questions you can't, that kind of question is something you can ask first thing when you first meet someone. But after you've talked about a couple things, you can ask about it, 2 or 3 questions into it. All of a sudden, you have all these needs. You go, wow, you know what? I have some great substitutes to some of those things, or some of those medications, some of those fixes or things that you're needing. I would love to just share with you and tell you more about them. And then this is the magic phrase to see if it's a good fit for you. That puts the control back in their lap. They don't feel like you're trying to convince them of something. Nobody wants to feel like they've just been convinced and talked into something. They want to feel like I was wise enough to listen to someone who knew more than me and I chose to use it. That's how you want your customer to feel like I chose to use these products and now I'm excited about them. When you find the multiple needs, when you do the three-part phone calling system, all these things, you will have better retention of your customers, you'll have more repeat business, you'll get more referrals, and people will also, because they know that you know how to sell without being salesy, they'll more likely want to work with you and possibly share the oils and sell them themselves. This is a huge perk to your business in several areas when you slow down, find multiple needs, and use the phone calling system correctly. So I hope that you've enjoyed the call. I hope you've learned a lot and use these techniques. It will be out of your comfort zone for a while. I hope that you match up together. Each of you know each other on the doTERRA call and get together, practice, role play, find the questions, record the questions. What did I say that worked really well in this situation? What did I say that didn't quite get the answer I was looking for? How can I change my wording? Make sure you have a couple questions to ask when you're out and about. Make sure you have your script in front of you. When you sit down to make phone calls, have that script. You won't remember every word. There's nothing wrong with reading those little questions and then listening, taking notes, okay? Use the tools that you have. Amazing things will happen. These are little tweaks, but it's just like, you've ever heard that example where you've got a flight plan, and if an airplane, if it's a difference of 2 degrees, if it's supposed to be headed here and it's off 2 degrees, it ends up clear up here instead of its destination. This is that kind of thing. An extra 2 degrees after a certain amount of time, you're going to be at a much higher level than you would be without these tips. Use them, see how much more authentic you feel. It's really, really amazing how both you and your customer will feel better and your sales will go up. Good luck to all of you. I'm so excited for you. I love working with you. Thank you for your patience. I pray that this is recorded much better than our last call. And this is a system that we'll use on Tuesdays. I look forward to seeing you. Have a great Memorial Day. Bye-bye.